Welcome to Sold with Webinars, a podcast that aims to uncover how the most successful experts, coaches, consultants, and e-course professionals sell their products and services with just one sales presentation or webinar. A simple sales webinar can transform the business and life of a solopreneur. And this podcast will show you how other experts just like you are generating 6 and 7 figures per year online with their webinars. So let's get started. Hey experts, it's Joel here with another episode of Sold with Webinars. And guys, you are in for a very, very special treat today. I have something incredible that I want to share with you today. We're going to dive into one of my clients' webinars as he's going through and he's launching the first versions of his webinars. And I'm going to give you the biggest mistakes that people make when they launch any of their sales and marketing materials. And I want to highlight my boy, James, who is absolutely crushing it right now with his webinar. And I want to talk about most common mistakes that people make and why James has been crushing it with his just 2 versions of his webinars. We're going to talk about something specific that is going to give you an inside look as to how to turn refunds into high ticket sales. Very, very critical. And you're also going to understand how to optimize your marketing and sales language to triple your sales in as little as 1 to 2 weeks. All right, so let's get started. Hey, what's going on, experts? It's Joel here, and I'm jumping in today. We're going to rock a solo podcast today on Sold with Webinars, and I am so excited, so pumped, because what I want to share with you today is actually something that I've been working with one of my private clients over the past few weeks. And it's really, really important, so important that it actually tripled his sales and saved and converted a refund into a high ticket offer. I want to backtrack a little bit. And this episode is going to be all about optimization. How are you going to optimize your webinars? How are you going to optimize your offers? And what do you focus on when you go live with your offer? And how do you know what to focus on when you start to make things better with your message and with your offer? So I'm going to brag about my boy, James Whitaker. He is one of my consulting clients who've been working together for a couple of months now. And when James came on, he was a little reluctant at first, and he was very, very typical, like a lot of my clients, like, oh, I'm just going to give it a shot first, and I'm going to try it. And then once I run it a couple of times, I'm going to reconnect with you. And so I let him stew on that for a little while, and eventually I followed up with him. And it was a few weeks later, I'm like, hey, man, did you launch your webinar? And he's like, no, let's go. And he signed up. So James, if you're listening to that, I love you, man, and totally bragging about you because you're crushing it right now. All right, so let's fast forward, right? So James, then we work together, we work on our message, and he completes his webinar. Now, James is in the career development niche, and specifically, he helps people land jobs and elevate their career in the big 4 accounting firms. So when we talk about going super niche, James is super niche. Like, he's showing people how to get a job in 4 companies, in only 4 companies. And so, but I do think that he has a tremendous opportunity with his offer. So we worked together, we put together the first script, and a few weeks ago, James went live and got a few hundred registrants coming to his webinar. And I think it's like a $600 or $700 offer. I can't remember off the top of my head. So a few weeks back, he goes live one Thursday night and he got 1 sale, and he was super pumped. He had somewhere around 160 registrations. He had 40 people show up and turned into 1 sale. And you could just tell in his email, he was just so excited, so enthusiastic. Actually, I'm reading right now. He ended it with pumped, all in caps. And so I'm like, dude, that's so awesome, because there's nothing like getting your first sale of your $700 or $600 course or $1,000 course or $2,000 course. But of course, I know that there is so much more room for improvement, and so did he. And so he's like, this is proof of concept, like it works, I can't freaking wait. And he was used to selling $7 products and low ticket tripwires to ultimately work up to the higher ticket sale. So he got a couple more sales that came through his follow-up sequence, and he's like, okay, cool. We worked on his webinar. I looked at some ways that we could improve it for the next one. And then he sends me a message later on. He's like, oh man, the first sale that we got, she ended up refunding because of X, Y, and Z, or he or she. I don't remember if it was a he or she. But anyway, he was all bummed because, they ended up refunding. And I'm like, well, okay, why did they refund? And this is where so many people miss the boat, right? You get a refund request and you get depressed because you're like, oh crap, I got that sale and then I got a refund. Well, what we found out was he speaks to two very different avatars. I mean, not really different avatars, but there's people who are in college looking to get a job at the Big Four. And then there's people who are already in the professional space and they're looking to revamp their interview skills and revamp their career development skills. And so I had him ask her, he or she, why they refunded. And he said, well, she just didn't think it was the right fit for what she was doing because she was already employed and was really just looking to advance their career. Now, I'm paraphrasing this. This may or may not be 100% accurate with their description, but bottom line was they invested into the program, but she was looking for more high touch. I'm like, dude, just go back and offer her a one-on-one consulting package or offer her more advanced training. And so he did, and he landed that refund, turned that refund into a $2,000 per month consulting client. And I just want to brag about him because so many people treat refunds as depressing activities. And while they can be, and I've done this plenty of times myself, somebody invests into one of my courses, like, oh, it's not for me. And then I ask them a question, like, why do you feel it's not for you? They're like, oh, well, I was looking for more information or more hand-holding. And they end up becoming a consulting client or a done-for-you client. There is so much opportunity in your sales, in your refunds for upsells. And so many people do not talk about it. So I'm going to leave you with that one thing today. That's the first thing I want to talk about. So I also want to fast forward now when James launched his second webinar and we worked on a couple of specific tweaks. Now with James, he had, I wouldn't call him the most extroverted presenter on the planet, but he knew that this was something that he has a lot of organic traffic coming from his site. So he's already got a massive asset on his website and people coming in all the time asking for information. He's like, I want to really harness the power of what we're doing here and I want to capture this. And so he committed to doing the webinar. And so the first time they did the webinar, of course, you're going to stumble. The energy is not going to be high, but he committed to it. And I said, okay, great. I knew that after I watched his webinar the first time, I'm like, okay, so the next steps that I want you to do is just keep practicing, number one, and get more comfortable at the content. When we looked at how engaged his audience was, he said like 80 to 90% of the people who showed up in the beginning stayed through the entire webinar, even through his pitch. And so I said, okay, that's an awesome indication, man, that you don't need to change anything with your content right now, aside from just practicing and maybe asking a couple of questions, but your content is gold. So what we want to focus on now is working on specific elements of your offer. How can we improve the elements of your offer? And I went straight into maybe we can clarify why they absolutely need this. And we also dialed in on his avatar. As I mentioned before, we had multiple avatars that were buying this program. And especially when we got that feedback that there was a high ticket client on that webinar that ended up refunding, that gave us an indication that we needed to focus our message more on the other people and get more of them to purchase, right? Very, very specific there. We saw the opportunity to focus more on the one avatar who really needed this program. And we got that from the feedback of the refund request who ended up turning into a high ticket client, right? So it's all about analyzing our data, analyzing what's working and how we can improve it. So very, very important there. So then he goes and we make a few changes and he launches his webinar again for a second time. He goes live and he sent me the stats and he went from making one sale, his first sale on that live webinar, to tripling his sales. So actually that turned into a refund, which turned into an upsell. So I don't even know how you want to properly measure this, but so it turned into a sale, a refund, and a high ticket client. So then he had this next webinar, which turned into 3 live sales on the webinar, which is triple what he did on the first webinar. And now he's just absolutely hooked. So I asked him, what did you do differently from the previous webinars? And he really, I'm not going to share all the details because it's private to what we're doing together, but I'll give you this. If you focus on the reason why people need whatever it is that you're talking about, right? I stress this so much. What is the reason why with every single piece of content that you talk about with your marketing? If you have a piece of content that you are sharing with your audience, why do they need to pay attention? If you're going through your webinar and you include 3, 4, 5 pieces of content that you want to share with them, why is each piece of content important? If you're going through and you're adding components to your offer, why is each component important? I can't stress. This sounds simple, but it is not easy, and it is very important. And James echoed it when I asked him, what do you think you did differently that made the biggest impact? And I don't know if this was intentional, but his answer to me was, I talked about my reasons why. It was reasons why I talked about this. It was reasons why I included this to make them need my program. Does that make sense? If you can explain reasons why with everything that you talk about, you will become a much better communicator, much more effective communicator in all of your messages and all of your marketing and all of your sales language. And it will drastically improve your conversions. James, I love you, man. Super proud of you. I wanted to give you a shout out on this podcast today. And I wanted to just put you up on a pedestal because I'm super, super impressed with, number one, you're just an excellent client. You're an excellent friend who values the investment of one-on-one mentoring and one-on-one consulting. And more than anything, you actually take action with your results. So thank you, James, for being awesome. And learn, for everyone else listening around, learn how you can apply that to your own offers, to your own marketing, because it is super critical. It's super simple, but of course, it's not always easy to do. That's what I've got for you today on this very short, very exclusive episode. Go crush it, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to giving you the next one. If you're serious about launching your own sales webinar, here are a few resources to check out. For free access to the software that we built internally for the webinar agency to train our copywriters, head to soldwithwebinars.com to sign up for a free trial to the Webinar Vault and get access to regular webinar breakdowns that are generating hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one on your webinar project, head to thewebinaragency.com for more details. And finally, be sure to subscribe to my other podcast, Experts Unleashed, where I interview changemakers and entrepreneurs to discover how they create opportunity to turn their expertise into income. Be sure to join us next time, and I'll see you there.